Sandra, President Trump's trip to the Middle East earning praise from some unlikely sources. Some former Biden officials are reportedly in awe of what he has been able to get done so far. Let's bring in T.W. Arrighi, the former press secretary for the National Republican Senatorial Campaign Committee, and Meghan Hays, former director of message planning and sometimes Easter Bunny for the Biden White House. So here's what some ex-Biden officials have been saying about this trip, according to Axios. Biden officials awed by Trump's rule-breaking Middle East moves. Biden administration veterans raised questions about Trump's motivations, but grudgingly saluted his boldness. Gosh, I wish I could work for an administration that could move that quickly, one admitted. You were a Biden administration official. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the break glass mentality is a good one. I think that you can get a lot done, but I think we are yet to see if doing it this way and this speed will actually get different results. I also would question the President Trump's motives here. I think a lot of it is personally motivated, not necessarily motivated for the country. Taking a $400 million plane is not necessarily motivated for the United States. That's a Trump investment for him personally. So I think that there,
even though that will be transferred to the Department of Defense.
And then transferred to his library, which was his personal thing. But tomato, tomato.
Well, there are some Democrats who are critical of the president's trip. Listen to what Eric Swalwell said.
It's a me presidency that he's running. And as I look at, this trip and what he's getting out of it, I see how he benefits. I don't see how Americans at home are going to benefit.
I mean, it's a little bit of what Meghan was saying there, but I'm also reminded of that old saying that, you will never be criticized by somebody who's doing more than you. You will only be criticized by people who are doing less than you.
That's absolutely true. What people are seeing is not just me. They're seeing trillions of dollars announced in new investments. You have peace deals being brokered in Iran, in other parts of the Middle East. We've heard talks of the Abraham Accords extending. Those are actual, real, tangible victories that will lead to a more peaceful Middle East and more unity in this world. People just can't wrap their heads, like Swalwell can't wrap their puny heads around the fact that you can do 1,000 things at once. This president is trying to do 1,000 things at once, and he's succeeding at a lot of them.
So there are a lot of Democrats who will never find common ground with Trump. But then there are some other Democrats who are meeting with him, whether it be in their home state, whether it be at the White House. People like Gretchen Whitmer, Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C., went to see him at the White House. John Fetterman went to see him down there in Mar-a-Lago. They're Democrats who say, look, it's probably better for the country if we work with this president as opposed to just constantly working against him.
Yeah, I think that's what politics is supposed to be, right? You're supposed to work across the aisle. I think that Gretchen Whitmer going to see him in the White House and then when he was in Michigan, that's an $800 million economic impact for her state. That is what she is supposed to do. She is supposed to put her constituents over politics for her personally, and I congratulate her for doing that. It's the same thing we saw a lot of Republicans doing that with the infrastructure bill when they would tout the infrastructure money that the Biden administration got for them. They were in their districts claiming credit for a lot of things. I think Trump is just much better at using people and using these moments for his benefit than the Democrats ever could be. So he is capturing and using these Democrats to say we are working across the aisle and these people are doing it and much differently than the Democrats did under the Biden administration.
And Democrats who refuse to work with the president are getting tweaked by him more than a little bit. Listen to what the president said about Chuck Schumer.
I think he's afraid, yeah. I watch him. He's lost his confidence totally. I just watched Chuck Schumer. I've known him so long. And he's in the other party, but, I've known the guy so long. He's totally lost his confidence.
So the president says he's totally lost his confidence. He does seem to be losing support among Democratic voters, because here's what a recent AP NORC poll found in terms of who's most popular and who's got the confidence of Democratic voters. Bernie Sanders is out there in front with the confidence and favorability ratings at 75%. AOC not too far behind at 55%. Schumer is way back at 35%.
Yeah.
I mean, TW, he does look like the door is getting closer to him.
100%. First
and that it's wide open for him to walk out.
Yeah, look, heavy is the head that wears the crown in the Senate. Everyone knows it's a really tough job. But make no mistake about it, he's petrified by his left flank. He's petrified by AOC. And I love how two of those people are over the age of 75. Fun fact, I don't think there is one committee right now in the House where the Republican chairman is not younger than their Democrat counterpart. It's run by old heads who can't read the room in front of them. Look, if everything is an emergency with Donald Trump, nothing is an emergency. And then the Democrats are put in the disadvantageous position of defending the status quo. And that's exactly where Schumer finds himself. Now, if Trump is evil and you can't engage like Gretchen Whitmer is wisely, then you are going to be put in a position where you are defending unpopular policies or worse yet, opposing policies that you once supported, like a change in tariff and trade policy.
Right. Do you want to get one more word in here before you get a bruise on your forehead against the table?
I mean, we've talked about this a lot at this table. I think that a lot of these members who are older, it's time to see a new generation of leadership, and I think that they need to recognize that, and that's probably a lot of where their unfavorability is coming from.
But is it AOC? Is it Jasmine Crockett? Is it Ilhan Omar?
I don't necessarily think the loudest people in the room are the voice of the party. I think that most of the country, Democrat or Republican, are right in the middle and pretty moderate. That's why we have swing states. That's why we have these districts and these states that decide elections back and forth. So I think that Democrats need to learn how to talk to moderates, and that's probably where the rest of the country is. And I don't necessarily think the left progressive movement is the future of the party.
But I hope it is.
All right. Thanks, folks. Great to see you. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.